What happens when the one destined to save your world is the one you throw away? For Alara Moonshadow, life as an Omega in the Silver Crest Pack meant invisible suffering. She existed in the shadows of their mountain territory, head bowed, voice silent, enduring the casual cruelty that came with being born weak. The lowest rank, the expendable ones. For 23 years, she'd scrubbed floors while alphas feasted, mended clothes while betas danced, and swallowed every insult with lavender-scented grace. But when Alpha King Daemon Blackthorn chose the night of the Harvest Moon ceremony to publicly sever their fated mate bond, crushing her soul in front of 300 witnesses and casting her into a winter storm to die, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Especially not the 10 ancient warriors who'd been searching for her since before she was born. The great hall of Silver Crest trembled with celebration. Torches blazed against stone walls, casting dancing shadows over the assembled pack. Warriors in ceremonial leather, elders draped in wolf pelts, young wolves practically vibrating with excitement. The Harvest Moon ceremony came once a year, when bonds were officially recognized, when futures were sealed, when the hierarchy renewed itself under the moon goddess's silver gaze. Alara stood at the very back, pressed against the cold stone wall where Omegas belonged. Her simple gray dress marked her status as clearly as a brand. Around her, other Omegas whispered nervously, their mixed sense of fear and resignation blending into something acrid. But Alara's scent was different tonight. Lavender and morning dew, yes, but underneath, something deeper. Wildflowers blooming in impossible places, a sweetness that made nearby wolves turn their heads, confused, before dismissing it. Just an Omega. Nothing important. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest, where the mate bond hummed like a living thing. 3 days ago, it had snapped into place during a chance encounter in the forest. She'd been gathering herbs when Alpha King Daemon Blackthorn himself had appeared, returning from border patrol. Their eyes had met. Time had stopped. The bond had seized them both with the force of destiny itself. Golden threads of light visible only to them, wrapping around their souls and pulling tight. The moon goddess's gift, unbreakable, sacred. Daemon had stumbled backward, his scent of forest and embers flaring with shock. His gray eyes had widened, locked on hers. For one perfect heartbeat, Alara had seen recognition, wonder, the beginning of something inevitable. Then his expression had shuddered like a door slamming shut. Tell no one, he'd growled, and vanished into the trees. For 3 days, she'd waited. Hope had bloomed in her chest despite years of learned hopelessness. Fated mates were rare, maybe one pair in 1,000. The bond couldn't be denied. Surely he would announce it tonight. Surely everything would change. She'd been so foolish. Silence! Daemon's voice cracked through the hall like thunder. The celebrations died instantly. 300 wolves turned as one toward the raised platform where their Alpha King stood, flanked by his beta commanders. At 28, Daemon Blackthorn was everything an alpha should be. 6'4" of corded muscle, dark hair that fell to his shoulders, a jaw that could have been carved from granite. His ceremonial black leather was studded with silver, marking him as not just any alpha, but royalty. His bloodline traced back to the first wolves. Power radiated from him in waves that made weaker wolves lower their eyes. Behind him stood Seraphina Nightshade, the pack's head warrior. Beautiful and deadly, with raven hair braided for battle and amber eyes that promised violence. Her scent of cinnamon and iron cut through the room. She smiled like a wolf who'd cornered prey. Tonight, Daemon announced, his voice carrying to every corner. I make my choice known. Ilara's heart hammered. The mate bond pulled at her ribs, urging her forward. This was it. 300 pairs of eyes would turn to her, the Omega who'd spent her life being invisible. But she would be Alpha Queen, protected, cherished. The bond would make them equal, as the Moon Goddess intended. As Alpha King, I must choose strength. Daemon's gray eyes swept the crowd, deliberately avoiding the back wall. I must choose power that will secure our future and intimidate our enemies. No, the word formed silently on Ilara's lips. Therefore, I claim Seraphina Nightshade as my chosen mate and future queen. The hall erupted in cheers. Seraphina's smile turned triumphant as she stepped forward, pressing herself against Daemon's side. Their scents mingled, forest and cinnamon, embers and iron. A wave of approval washed through the pack. Ilara couldn't breathe. The bond writhed in her chest like a living creature in pain. Chosen mate, not fated mate. It was allowed, technically. But to have a fated bond and reject it. However, Daemon continued, and the room quieted again. His gaze finally found Ilara in the back. Gray eyes met hers across the distance, cold and resolute. There is one matter that must be addressed. Oh gods! Ilara Moonshadow, come forward! The crowd parted like water, creating a pathway. Ilara's legs moved without her permission, carrying her through a gauntlet of shocked faces and whispered speculation. Her lavender scent spiked with fear, drawing wrinkled noses and disgusted expressions. She climbed the platform steps on shaking legs. Up close, Daemon's scent of forest and embers was overwhelming, cut through with ozone, the smell of a storm about to break. The mate bond screamed between them, trying to pull them together. He took a deliberate step backward. 3 days ago, Daemon announced to the assembly, the Moon Goddess saw fit to forge a fated bond between myself and this Omega. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several wolves laughed, thinking it a joke. Fated bonds to Omegas were the stuff of tragic tales, mistakes to be pitied. And tonight, Daemon continued, his voice hard as iron. I formally reject that bond. I, Daemon Blackthorn, Alpha King of Silver Crest Pack, reject you, Ilara Moonshadow, as my mate. The bond didn't just break, it shattered. Ilara's scream tore through the hall as agony ripped through her chest. It felt like her ribcage was being pried open, her heart torn out and set on fire. The golden threads of light that only she could see snapped one by one, each severing like a physical wound. She collapsed to her knees, clutching her chest as the pain radiated outward in waves. The pack watched in silence. Some wolves looked away, uncomfortable. Most watched with expressions ranging from pity to satisfaction. This was the natural order being restored, and Omega's place was beneath them, not beside their king. Through the agony, Ilara heard Seraphina's soft laugh. How dramatic! Remove her, Daemon ordered, his voice empty of emotion. The scent of ozone grew stronger, mixed with something else. Regret? No, she must be imagining it through the pain. 2 guards hauled Ilara to her feet. The physical pain of the bond severing was fading, but something worse remained. A hollow space in her chest where destiny had lived for 3 perfect days. Please, she whispered, finding Daemon's eyes one last time. Why? For just a moment. Something flickered in his expression. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold mask of a king who'd made his choice. You're weak, he said simply. My pack needs a strong queen. You would have been a liability, a laughingstock. He turned away, dismissing her existence as easily as swatting a fly. The guards dragged Alara through the crowd. Pack members pulled back as if she carried disease. Near the door, she caught sight of her parents, Michael and Sarah Moonshadow, both betas, respectable and unremarkable. "Mother," Alara gasped, reaching for her. "Please." Her mother looked away. Her father's jaw clenched, but he made no move to help. They'd always been ashamed of having an Omega daughter. Now she'd humiliated them in front of the entire pack by being publicly rejected by the Alpha King himself. The guards threw her out into the night. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the warmth and light and resuming celebration. Through the thick wood, she heard Damon's voice. "Let the bonding ceremony begin." Cheers erupted. Her replacement was being celebrated while she lay in the mud. Alara dragged herself to her feet. The mountain air bit through her thin dress. Late autumn in the Northern Territories was brutal. Another month, and winter would arrive in earnest. Already, frost rimmed the edges of stones and whitened the grass. She had no coat, no supplies, no plan. The pack laws were absolute. Rejected wolves must leave the territory by dawn or be hunted as rogues. She had maybe 6 hours. Behind her, the Great Hall's windows glowed with firelight and joy. Her old life continued without her, as if she'd never existed at all. Alara turned toward the dark forest and began walking. The wilderness welcomed her like an old enemy. Alara's bare feet left bloody prints in the frost. Her thin gray dress provided no protection against wind that cut like knives. Every step took her deeper into territory she didn't recognize, past the pack boundaries, beyond the marked trails, into the ancient forest where rogues and worse things prowled. She didn't care. The hollow space in her chest where the mate bond had lived consumed everything else. She was dimly aware of cold, of pain, of exhaustion. But mostly she felt nothing. The numbness was almost a blessing. Hours passed, maybe days. Time lost meaning. The storm hit without warning. One moment, the sky was clear enough to see stars. The next, clouds rolled in like an invading army, black and furious. Wind howled through the trees, bending ancient pines like grass. Then the snow came. Not gentle flakes, a blizzard that turned the world white and made breathing feel like drowning. Alara stumbled forward, arms wrapped around herself, no longer sure which direction she was moving. Her lavender scent was stripped away by the wind, replaced by the sharp smell of ozone and coming death. Her wolf stirred weakly within her, the small, fragile thing that had never been strong enough. Even now, it couldn't protect her, couldn't shift to a more resilient form, couldn't save her. "I'm sorry," she thought to the creature that shared her soul. "I was never enough for you either." The wolf whimpered and retreated deep inside. Through the whiteout, a dark shape loomed. Alara crashed into it. Wood, rough and solid. Her numb fingers traced its surface. A wall, some kind of structure. She felt her way around until she found an opening. A barn, long abandoned by the smell of it. Half the roof had collapsed, but one corner remained intact, offering shelter from the worst of the wind. Alara crawled inside and collapsed onto rotted hay. The cold followed her in. It settled into her bones, slowing her heart, numbing her limbs. Her breath came in shallow gasps that turned to mist in the freezing air. This was it then. The moon goddess had given her a mate, and that mate had thrown her away. There was a dark poetry to dying alone in the wilderness, rejected by the one who should have cherished her above all others. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one, to everyone, to herself. Her eyes drifted closed. The darkness was gentle, kind even. It didn't judge her for being weak. Didn't mock her for being Omega. In the darkness, she was nothing, and nothing couldn't be hurt anymore. She welcomed it. Warmth. That was wrong. The dead didn't feel warm. Ilara's consciousness clawed its way back toward awareness. Sensation returned in pieces, heat against her left side, her back, surrounding her. The smell of aged oak and winter snow, strong and close. The sound of breathing that wasn't hers. She opened her eyes. 6 inches from her face, a massive wolf regarded her with eyes like liquid silver. Ilara's scream caught in her throat, emerging as barely a whimper. Her body was too weak to run, too cold to move. She could only stare as the wolf, easily twice the size of any she'd ever seen, watched her with an intelligence that was distinctly unsettling. Its fur was pure black, so dark it seemed to absorb light. But when it shifted, silver undertones rippled through the darkness like moonlight on water. The scent of aged oak and winter snow rolled off it in waves, mixed with something else. Pine. Storm. Authority. The wolf's silver eyes narrowed slightly, and somehow Ilara understood. Don't move. You're still in danger. She became aware of more warmth, behind her, to her right. She couldn't turn her head far enough to see, but she heard them. Breathing, shifting, present. More wolves. How many? 1, 2, 3. Her eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the ruined barn. 4 wolves. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 massive wolves surrounded her, their bodies pressed close, sharing their heat. They'd formed a living barrier between her and death, their combined warmth pulling her back from the edge. They'd saved her. But why? The black wolf, clearly the alpha of this group, rose to its feet. Standing, it was even more impressive. Its shoulder would reach above her waist. It could have torn her throat out without effort. Instead, it moved toward the barn's entrance, its massive paws silent despite its size. Through the opening, Ilara could see the blizzard had passed. Dawn light filtered through dissipating clouds, painting the snow-covered world in shades of gold and pink. The black wolf looked back at her once, then shifted. The transformation was unlike anything Ilara had ever witnessed. Most shifts were brutal. Bones snapping, bodies contorting, screams of pain. This was fluid, graceful. The wolf's form seemed to melt and reform, darkness giving way to human skin. The man who stood in the doorway took Ilara's breath away. He was tall, at least 6'5", with broad shoulders and a warrior's build. His skin was weathered, marked with old scars that spoke of countless battles. His hair was black as his wolf form, shot through with silver at the temples, hanging loose to his shoulders. He appeared to be in his mid-40s, and there was something ancient in his silver eyes. He wore dark leather that seemed to materialize with his shift, old magic at work. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. Ilara Moonshadow. It wasn't a question. He knew her name. We've been waiting for you. Terror and confusion warred in Ilara's chest. How? Who are you? The man smiled, and it transformed his severe features into something almost gentle. My name is Theron Stormclaw, and these, he gestured to the 9 wolves who still surrounded her, are the Shadow Guard. Behind him, the other wolves shifted. One by one, they transformed with the same fluid grace, revealing warriors of various ages, all marked with battle scars, all watching her with expressions of reverence that made no sense. I don't understand, Ilara whispered. Her voice was raw from screaming, from cold, from rejection. Theron knelt beside her, his scent of aged oak and winter snow wrapping around her like a protective blanket. He was being careful not to touch her, she realized, respecting her space despite having just saved her life. You nearly died last night, he said softly. We found you just in time. You should have let me, she said, and meant it. What was there to live for? Something flickered in Theron's silver eyes. Not pity. Understanding. We couldn't, he said. Because you're the one we've been searching for since before you were born." One of the other warriors stepped forward, a woman with copper hair and keen green eyes, a jagged scar running down her left cheek. Since before any of us were born, actually. Ilara's exhausted mind struggled to process this. "I'm nobody. Just an Omega. Just, you're so much more than that," Theron interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "And we're going to prove it to you." He stood, moving to a pack that Ilara hadn't noticed before. He pulled out thick furs, dried meat, a water skin, the practical supplies of warriors who knew how to survive. "First," Theron said, wrapping a fur around her shoulders, "we get you warm and fed. Then we take you somewhere safe. And then—" his silver eyes met hers, filled with something that looked like hope. "We show you the truth about who you really are. Who I am." Ilara pulled the fur tighter, soaking in its warmth. "I'm Ilara Moonshadow, Omega, rejected, worthless." No. The word came from all 10 warriors at once, a unified declaration that rang with power. Theron crouched before her again. "You are Ilara Moonshadow, yes, but you were never meant to be Omega. Your power was bound when you were an infant, hidden, locked away behind a spell so strong it took 23 years to break." Ilara's breath caught. "What?" "The rejection," Theron said quietly. "When the mate bond shattered, it created a crack in the binding. Your true nature is starting to wake up." As if in response to his words, something stirred deep in Ilara's chest. Not the hollow space where the mate bond had been. Something else. Something that had always been there, but never acknowledged. Her wolf. But this wasn't the small, weak creature she'd known her whole life. This was something vast, ancient, powerful, and it was waking up. "What's happening to me?" Ilara gasped as warmth flooded her body. Not the warmth of furs or wolves, but heat from within. Energy that made her skin glow faintly with golden light. Theron's smile was fierce and proud. "You're becoming who you were always meant to be." The other warriors knelt, 9 heads bowed in perfect synchronization. Only Theron remained standing, though his expression carried the same reverence. "We've waited so long," he said softly. "We are the Shadow Guard, sworn by ancient oath to find and protect the one spoken of in prophecy, the one who would be cast out and reborn, the one who would unite the packs and lead us into a new age. I don't prophecy. I'm just—" "You're not." Theron extended his hand. "And it's time you learned the truth." Ilara looked at his offered hand, then at the 9 warriors still kneeling in the ruined barn. 10 wolves, 10 ancient warriors, all here for her. It was impossible. But then again, so was surviving a blizzard. So was feeling power stirring in her chest where there had only been weakness before. She reached out and took Theron's hand. The moment their skin touched, a wave of power washed over both of them. The golden glow around Ilara intensified, and Theron's silver eyes widened in what looked like recognition, like relief. "There you are," he murmured. Finally, he helped her to her feet. Her legs shook, but held. The Shadow Guard rose as one, forming a protective circle around her. "Where are we going?" Ilara asked. "Home," Theron said. And something in his tone made it clear he didn't mean Silvercrest Pack. He meant something far older. Something she was beginning to remember in a way that didn't make sense, like memories that weren't hers, or perhaps memories that had been locked away so long they felt foreign. As they left the barn and stepped into snow-covered wilderness, Ilara looked back once at the direction she'd come from. Somewhere beyond those mountains, Silvercrest Pack was waking up to a new day. Damon Blackthorn was probably in bed with his chosen mate. the rejected Omega already forgotten. They had no idea what they'd unleashed by throwing her away. Inside her chest, the vast, ancient wolf stirred again. And this time, it spoke. "Sister," it said in a voice like thunder and starlight. "Welcome home." Elara gasped, stumbling. Theron caught her elbow, steadying her. "Easy," he said. "Your wolf is powerful. She'll take some getting used to." "She spoke to me," Elara whispered. "She called me sister." Theron's smile was knowing. Wolf spirits are not servants or pets. The strongest of them are equals, partners, sisters in soul. The copper-haired warrior laughed, a sound full of joy. "Oh, she's going to be magnificent. I can feel it." "Come," Theron said, gently guiding Elara forward. "We have a long walk ahead, but at the end of it, you'll find answers, and power, and perhaps," his silver eyes held something warm, "a new family to replace the one that failed you." The Shadow Guard moved as one unit, surrounding her, protecting her. Their scents mingled, oak and pine, leather and steel, earth and stone. Beneath it all, her own scent of lavender and wildflowers grew stronger, no longer suppressed by fear. She was heading into the unknown with 10 strangers. And somehow, it felt like the first time in her life she was heading in the right direction. The sanctum was hidden so deep in the wilderness that most wolves thought it was legend. They reached it after 3 days of walking, Elara's strength returning more with each passing hour, that strange warmth in her chest growing steadily brighter. The Shadow Guard moved through the forest like ghosts, their massive forms silent despite their size. They hunted for her, cooked for her, protected her while she slept. And they told her stories, stories of ancient times, when alphas weren't just pack leaders, but God-touched warriors. When power wasn't about hierarchy, but about duty. When one wolf could rise above all others, not through cruelty, but through destiny. "The moon goddess has always had a plan," said Marcus, a grizzled warrior with a missing eye and hands scarred from old battles. "But humans and wolves alike think they can override her will with politics and power plays. She lets them think they have control," added the copper-haired woman, whose name was Reyna. "But every few centuries, she reminds us who's really in charge." "With a matriarch," Elara whispered, testing the word. They'd used it repeatedly during their stories, but she still didn't fully understand. "Not just a matriarch," Theron corrected, walking beside her. In 3 days, she'd learned he was patient, thoughtful, and carried an authority that had nothing to do with force. The others deferred to him naturally, calling him commander. "The matriarch, the first and only, the one who will change everything." "And you think that's me?" It still seemed absurd. Theron stopped walking, turning to face her fully. His silver eyes caught the late afternoon light. "I don't think, Elara. I know. We all know. We've been waiting 300 years for you." 300? The number staggered her. "How?" "We're not normal wolves," Reyna said with a grin that showed too many teeth. "We were chosen by the moon goddess herself when the first prophecy was spoken. We don't age like others. We can't be killed by normal means. Our only purpose is to find and protect the matriarch when she finally arrives." "The prophecy," Elara said slowly. "What exactly does it say?" The 10 warriors exchanged glances. Then, as one, they recited, "When the rejected rises from death's cold embrace, when broken bonds reveal the hidden grace, the matriarch will wake in silver and gold, more powerful than any wolf of old. She will come when darkness threatens light, when packs divide and territories fight. Born from lowest rank, but not bound by it. The Queen of Queens, the moon's favorite. 10 shadows will guard her, sworn and true, until she claims the power that is her due." The words hung in the air like visible magic. Elara felt them resonate in her chest, in that place where her vast wolf stirred. "They speak of us," her wolf said, her voice clearer now. "They speak of what we will become." "I don't feel like a queen," Elara admitted quietly. Theron smiled and started walking again. "Not yet. But you will." The sanctum appeared as they crested a hill, a valley hidden by ancient magic, protected by wards older than memory. At its center stood a compound of stone buildings, weathered but strong. Around it the forest grew wild but not threatening. Everything about the place whispered of safety. "Home. This is our base," Theron explained as they descended. "We've maintained it for 3 centuries, waiting. Always waiting." Other wolves emerged from the buildings, more members of the Shadow Guard, Elara realized. Not all of them traveled at once. The compound was larger than she'd expected, built to house a small army. But everyone stopped when they saw her. One by one, wolves of all sizes and ranks fell to their knees, heads bowed. "The matriarch," someone whispered. "She's here," another voice said, thick with emotion. After all this time, Elara's throat tightened. These wolves, these warriors who looked like they could tear apart armies, were kneeling for her. An Omega who'd spent her life being invisible. "Not Omega," her wolf growled. "Never Omega. They lied. They bound us. But we are free now. Come," Theron said softly, gesturing to the largest building. "There's someone who needs to speak with you." Inside, the building was warm and surprisingly comfortable. Furs on the floors, tapestries on the walls, a central fire pit casting dancing shadows. But what drew Elara's attention was the ancient wolf sitting near the fire. She was massive even in human form, an old woman with white hair braided with silver cord, skin like aged leather, eyes that had seen centuries pass. She wore ceremonial robes marked with symbols Elara didn't recognize. "Elara Moonshadow," the old woman said, her voice like wind through autumn leaves. "I am Grandmother Lissa, keeper of the old ways. I've been waiting a very long time to meet you." "Everyone keeps saying that," Elara said, her voice smaller than she intended. "But I still don't understand why." Grandmother Lissa gestured to a cushion near the fire. "Sit, child. Let me tell you the truth your parents never did." Elara sat, and Theron settled beside her, not too close, but near enough to offer silent support. The other members of the Shadow Guard arranged themselves around the room, listening with the intensity of those who'd heard this story before, but never tired of it. 23 years ago, Grandmother Lissa began. A child was born during a lunar eclipse. Her parents were unremarkable betas, but the child herself was extraordinary. She glowed with golden light from the moment she entered the world. Her cry shook the building. Her scent was lavender and wild flowers and pure, undiluted power. Elara's breath caught. "Me." "You," the old woman confirmed. "The pack doctor who delivered you recognized what you were immediately. The moon goddess had marked you for greatness. But your parents," her expression turned sad. "They were afraid. Afraid of their own daughter? Afraid of what your power would mean. Afraid you'd outrank them. Afraid of the attention and responsibility that would come with raising a matriarch. So they did something unforgivable." Grandmother Lissa's eyes hardened. "They hired a dark witch to bind your power." The fire crackled in the silence that followed. "A binding. This strong requires sacrifice," Grandmother Lissa continued. "The witch took your true nature and locked it behind a spell tied to your life force. As long as you lived, you would appear to be the weakest type of wolf, an Omega. Your power would be invisible, your wolf suppressed, your scent muted to almost nothing. You would be unremarkable in every way. And everyone believed it, Elara whispered. Even me. Especially you, Theron said quietly. That's how binding spells work. They convince even the victim that they're true. But why? Elara turned to the old woman. If I was so powerful, why didn't the moon goddess stop them? Grandmother Lissa smiled, but it wasn't happy. Because the binding, while cruel, actually protected you. If your power had been visible from birth, other packs would have tried to kill you. Alphas would have tried to claim you. Wolves would have waged war over you before you were old enough to defend yourself. The binding kept you hidden until you were strong enough to survive its breaking. The rejection, Elara breathed. That's what broke it? Partially, the old woman confirmed. Mate bond rejections are soul-level trauma. When Alpha King Blackthorn severed your bond so brutally, it created cracks in the binding spell. And when you nearly died in the blizzard, when you accepted death and let go of everything holding you back, the spell shattered completely. Elara pressed a hand to her chest, feeling that vast presence within her. And now? Now, Grandmother Lissa said, your true nature is awakening. But it's a process. You've been suppressed for 23 years. It will take time for your full power to manifest. Days. Perhaps weeks. What kind of power? Elara asked, and wasn't sure if she wanted to know the answer. Everything a matriarch should have, Theron answered, his voice warm with certainty. Enhanced strength that will make you stronger than any alpha. The ability to command other wolves through will alone. Empathic gifts that let you feel and influence emotions. Healing abilities beyond anything the pack doctors can manage. And a wolf form. He paused, something like awe crossing his features. Unlike anything that's been seen in 1,000 years. Show them, Elara's wolf said suddenly. I want to show them. She wants to shift, Elara said, startled by the intensity of the urge. Grandmother Lissa's eyes widened. Already? The binding only broke 4 days ago. Most wolves would need weeks to— She's not most wolves, Theron said, standing and offering Elara his hand. If she's ready, we shouldn't stop her. They moved outside, into a clearing surrounded by the Shadow Guard's compound. Night had fallen while they talked, and the full moon hung heavy and silver in the sky. 50 warriors had gathered, word spreading fast. They formed a circle around the clearing, watching with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely contained excitement. Elara stood in the center, Theron beside her, her heart hammered against her ribs. I don't know how, she admitted. I've never shifted before. The binding prevented it. Your wolf knows, Theron said softly. Trust her. Elara closed her eyes and reached inward, toward that vast presence. Sister, her wolf said, and there was such joy in the word. Finally, we can be whole. The shift began. Most shifts were violent. Bones snapped, muscles tore and reformed, skin split to allow fur to emerge. Wolves screamed in agony every single time, no matter how experienced. This was nothing like that. Elara felt her bones flow like water, reshaping themselves without pain. Her muscles expanded smoothly, power flooding into every fiber. Her skin didn't split. Instead, fur emerged naturally, golden brown with streaks of silver that caught the moonlight. She grew, and grew, and grew. The shift took maybe 10 seconds. When it was complete, Elara stood on 4 paws, looking down at Theron from a height that should have been impossible. Gasps rippled through the watching warriors. Moon Goddess, protect us, someone whispered. Elara's wolf form was mythic. She stood taller than any wolf in the clearing, including Theron's impressive black form. Her fur was golden brown like autumn leaves, shot through with silver that seemed to glow with inner light. Her eyes had changed from their human brown to pure molten gold. Power radiated from her in waves that made the air shimmer. She felt strong, whole, complete. For the first time in her life, Elara felt like herself. "We are magnificent," her wolf said with fierce pride. Through her enhanced senses, Elara could smell everything: the leather and sweat of 50 warriors, the smoke from distant fires, the scent of aged oak and winter snow that marked Theron even in this form. She could hear heartbeats, individual and distinct. She could feel the emotional energy of everyone present: awe, joy, reverence, hope. She opened her mouth and howled. The sound shook the very air. It wasn't just a wolf's howl. It carried power, command, ancient authority. It rang out across the valley, echoed off the mountains, sent birds fleeing from trees miles away. Every wolf present, all 50 members of the Shadow Guard, dropped to their bellies, heads bowed, tails tucked in perfect submission. Not because they feared her, because they recognized what she was: their queen, their matriarch. Only Theron remained standing, and only because his oath as commander required it. But even he lowered his head in respect, his silver eyes shining with something that looked like pride. In the distance, Grandmother Lissa's voice carried across the clearing. "She is the one. The prophecy is fulfilled. Bow before the matriarch reborn." Elara's golden eyes swept across the bowed warriors. These were wolves who'd lived for centuries, who'd fought in countless battles, who knew power when they saw it. And they were bowing to her. She shifted back to human form, the change as smooth and painless as the first. When she stood on 2 feet again, naked as all shifters were after a transformation, someone immediately draped a fur cloak around her shoulders. Theron's scent of oak and snow. He stood before her, still in wolf form, silver eyes locked on hers. Then, deliberately, he shifted. "Elara Moonshadow," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. "The Shadow Guard recognizes you as the matriarch of legend. We pledge our lives, our swords, our loyalty to you and you alone. From this moment until our last breath. Do you accept our oath?" Elara looked at the 50 warriors still prone on the ground, at Grandmother Lissa, watching from the edge of the clearing with tears in her ancient eyes. At Theron, this scarred warrior who'd searched for her for 3 centuries. 4 days ago, she'd been nobody, an Omega rejected and thrown away. Now she was being offered an army, a purpose, a destiny. "I accept," she whispered. "I accept," she said again, louder. "I accept," she declared, and this time, power rolled out with her words, making the air shimmer gold. As one, 50 voices rose in a howl that shook the stars. The matriarch had returned. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of training, discovery, and transformation. Every morning, Elara woke in her private chambers, far more luxurious than anything she'd had in Silver Crest, and spent hours with different members of the Shadow Guard, learning what it meant to be who she was. Theron taught her combat. Despite her new strength, she was clumsy, unused to her own power. He was patient, correcting her form with gentle touches, guiding her strikes with steady hands. His scent of oak and winter snow became as familiar as her own. "Don't think," he instructed as they sparred in human form. "Your wolf knows how to fight. Let instinct guide you." When Elara finally landed a hit that sent him stumbling back, he smiled, genuinely pleased, despite the bruise forming on his jaw. "There she is," he murmured, There's my matriarch. Something warm bloomed in Alara's chest at the pride in his voice, at the way he said, my. Reyna taught her the empathic abilities. Close your eyes, the copper-haired warrior instructed. Feel the energy around you. Every wolf has an emotional signature. Learn to read them. It was overwhelming at first, so much feeling, pressing in from all sides. But gradually, Alara learned to filter, to focus, to understand the emotional currents that swirled around her constantly. Now, Reyna said with a sharp grin, learn to influence them. Alara discovered she could project calm into anxious wolves, courage into fearful ones. She could also project fear into enemies, or force submission through will alone. Don't abuse it, Reyna warned. Power used wrong corrupts even the best intentions. Marcus, the one-eyed warrior, taught her pack politics and history. You need to understand the world you're about to change, he said gruffly. Knowledge is a weapon just like fangs and claws. Alara learned about pack territories, alliances, feuds that had lasted centuries. She learned about the Council of Alphas that governed inter-pack relations, a system that had grown corrupt over the years, favoring strength over justice. Silver Crest is one of the 5 great packs, Marcus explained, pointing to a map. They control the northern territories. Their army numbers over 200 wolves, and their Alpha King, don't, Alara said quietly. I know about Daemon Blackthorn. Marcus's single eye softened with understanding. The rejection still hurts. The mate bond is gone, Alara said. It was true. That hollow space in her chest had filled with something else now, something vast and golden that felt like destiny. But the memory of it hurts, the humiliation, the cruelty. Good, Marcus said, and when she looked at him in surprise, he shook his head. Not good that you hurt, good that you remember. Pain teaches us what not to become. Grandmother Lissa taught her the spiritual aspects of her role. You're not just a powerful wolf, the old woman explained. You're the moon goddess's chosen representative. Learn to pray. Learn to listen. Learn to feel her guidance. In the quiet hours before dawn, Alara would sit under the moon and reach out to the divine presence she could now sense, vast and loving and ancient beyond measure. The moon goddess didn't speak in words, but Alara felt her approval like warm light washing over her skin. You are mine, the feeling said. You are loved. You are exactly where you need to be. And slowly, day by day, Alara began to believe it. Her wolf grew stronger too. The two of them spent hours in conversation, no longer hesitant strangers, but sisters in truth. You held me back, her wolf said one night, but there was no accusation in it. For 23 years, I was trapped. I didn't know, Alara whispered. I thought you were just weak. We were both weak. The binding affected us both. But now, her wolf's presence swelled with fierce joy. Now we are unstoppable. The Shadow Guard became family. 50 warriors who'd waited 3 centuries for her, who looked at her with loyalty so absolute it was almost frightening. They told her their stories, battles fought, loves lost, the long centuries of searching and hoping and refusing to give up. We never doubted, Reyna told her one evening as they watched the sunset. Even when decades passed with no sign, even when other wolves called us fanatics chasing myths, we knew you'd come. Why? Alara asked. Why such faith? Reyna's green eyes held ancient wisdom. Because the moon goddess doesn't lie. And because the world needs you, Alara. It needs someone who understands what it's like to be powerless. Someone who will lead with justice, not just strength. At night, Alara often found Theron on the walls of the compound, keeping watch, She'd join him in comfortable silence, looking out at the dark forest. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked him once. "Spending 300 years searching for someone you'd never met?" Theron's silver eyes found hers in the moonlight. Every moment of those 300 years was worth it to see you stand in that clearing, golden and glowing, and finally free. Something in his voice made her heart skip. "Theron, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I know what I am. Your protector, your commander. I'm old enough to be your great-great-great-grandfather." "You don't look a day over 45, Alara said, trying for levity. He smiled, but it was sad. "The mate bond with that alpha is broken. Your heart should be free." "But I won't presume." "I care about you," Alara interrupted. "Not as a commander, not as a protector, as—" She struggled for words. "As someone who makes me feel safe, seen, valued." Theron's breath caught. "Alara, I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know. You've given me so much. A purpose, a family, myself. I wanted you to know that I—" She couldn't quite say love, not yet. "That you matter to me." For a long moment, Theron just looked at her. Then slowly, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, reverent. "You matter to me too," he said softly. "More than you know." His scent of oak and snow wrapped around her, and for the first time since the rejection, Alara felt something like hope stir in her chest. Not for a fated bond. Those came once in a lifetime. But for something chosen, something real. Days turned to weeks. Winter settled over the sanctum in earnest, but Alara no longer feared the cold. Her power kept her warm, kept her strong. She practiced her abilities until she could shift in heartbeats, until she could command lesser wolves with a thought, until she could heal minor injuries with a touch of glowing golden light. "You're ready," Grandmother Lissa finally declared. "The question is, ready for what?" That answer came sooner than anyone expected. A scout burst into the compound one morning, wild-eyed and panting. "Commander," he gasped, finding Theron in the training yard. "Rogues on the eastern border, but not just any rogues. They're organized, moving with purpose." "Toward us?" Theron's voice was sharp. "No." The scout swallowed hard. "Toward Silver Crest territory." And they're displaying Silver Crest colors, like they're returning home. Alara, who'd been practicing combat forms, froze. "One of them," the scout continued, "bears the Alpha King's mark. I saw it clearly. It's not a rogue party. It's a scouting mission." "They found me," Alara whispered. "Or they're looking," Theron said grimly. "Either way, they know someone in this region is powerful. The kind of power that ripples across pack bonds and draws attention." Alara's hands clenched into fists. "What do we do?" Theron's silver eyes met hers. "We don't hide. Hiding is for those who are afraid. And you, my matriarch," a fierce smile crossed his face, "you have nothing to fear anymore." Grandmother Lissa, who'd come to see what the commotion was about, nodded slowly. "The time has come. 4 weeks ago, you were cast out to die. Now you'll return and show them what they threw away." "I'm not going back to beg," Alara said, her voice hard. "No," Theron agreed. "You're going back as what you are, the matriarch, the queen of queens, and you're going to give them one chance to kneel, or face the consequences." Reyna let out a whoop of excitement. "Finally! I've been waiting for this." Other members of the Shadow Guard were gathering now, sensing something momentous was happening. Alara looked at them. 50 warriors who'd become her family. 50 wolves who'd sworn their lives to her. She thought about the prophecy, about destiny, about the powerless Omega who'd become something so much more. Then let's go introduce ourselves, she said, and felt her wolf stir with anticipation. Let's remind Silver Crest Pack what happens when they defy the Moon Goddess's will. Theron's smile was proud and fierce. Shadow Guard, prepare for march. We leave at dawn. Cheers erupted through the compound. Tomorrow, Alara would return to the pack that had thrown her away. But she wouldn't return as an Omega. She'd return as their judgment. They saw the Silver Crest scouts on the second day of travel. 6 wolves moving through the forest in standard patrol formation. When they caught sight of Alara and the Shadow Guard, they froze, then bolted. Let them run, Theron said calmly, his massive black wolf keeping pace beside Alara's golden form. Let them tell their alpha what's coming. The Shadow Guard moved like a storm through the wilderness. 50 massive wolves, each one larger and more powerful than any normal pack member. At their center, Alara ran in her matriarch form, golden fur gleaming in the winter sun, silver streaks catching the light like captured stars. She could feel her power now like a tangible thing. It radiated from her in waves, marking the territory, declaring her presence. Animals fled before them. Birds went silent. The forest itself seemed to bow. This is what you were always meant to be, her wolf said with satisfaction. By the time they reached Silver Crest's border, a reception committee was waiting. 20 wolves stood in defensive formation at the territory line. At their head was someone Alara recognized, Beta Garrett, one of Daemon's commanders. His brown wolf was larger than average, but next to the Shadow Guard, he looked like a pup. Alara shifted to human form. Immediately, someone, Marcus, draped a fur cloak around her shoulders. The rest of the Shadow Guard shifted as well, 49 warriors taking human form, while Theron remained in his massive black wolf form, positioned protectively beside her. Garrett shifted too, his expression a mix of confusion and dawning horror. You, he gasped. Alara Moonshadow. But you died. The blizzard. I didn't die, Alara said, her voice calm and carrying. Though your Alpha King certainly tried to ensure I would. I don't understand. Garrett's eyes swept over the Shadow Guard, and Alara could smell his fear spiking, sharp and acrid. Who are these wolves? How are you? Where is he? Alara interrupted. Where is Alpha King Daemon Blackthorn? At the pack house. But you can't just... I can, Alara said simply. And I will. You have 2 choices, Beta Garrett. Stand aside and let us pass. Or try to stop us and face what happens next. Garrett looked at his 20 wolves, then at the 50 behind Alara. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. Let them pass, he said to his wolves. The Silver Crest wolves parted like water. The walk through the territory was surreal. Alara had traveled these paths for 23 years, always with her head down, always trying to be invisible. Now she walked with her spine straight, power rolling off her in golden waves, 50 legendary warriors at her back. Pack members emerged from their homes to watch. Whispers followed them like wind. Is that Alara Moonshadow? She's supposed to be dead. Look at those wolves. Moon Goddess, she's glowing. By the time they reached the pack house, a crowd had gathered. Alara could see her parents in the throng, Michael and Sarah Moonshadow, their faces pale with shock. Her mother's hand was pressed to her mouth. The doors to the great hall stood open. Inside, Alara could see exactly what she'd expected. Daemon Blackthorn on his alpha throne. Seraphina Nightshade beside him in the position that should have been Alara's. Beta commanders flanked them, the same room where Alara had been rejected 4 weeks ago. Alara climbed the steps to the entrance. Theron, still in wolf form, stayed right beside her. The rest of the Shadow Guard formed a wall of power at her back. She stepped into the great hall. Silence fell like a hammer. Daemon rose slowly from his throne, his gray eyes wide with disbelief. His scent of forest and embers filled the room, but now it was cut through with shock and fear. "Elara?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Hello, Daemon," she said calmly. "Miss me?" Seraphina was on her feet too, her amber eyes narrowed with suspicion. "This is impossible. You died in the blizzard. I made sure the guards threw you out with nothing." "You made sure?" Elara's gaze shifted to the beautiful warrior who'd claimed her place. "How thorough of you." "Who are these wolves?" Daemon demanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. He could feel it too. The power in the room, the pressure of something vast and ancient that made his alpha presence look like a child playing at authority. "Allow me to introduce myself properly," Elara said, walking further into the hall. The crowd parted before her. "I am Elara Moonshadow, yes, but I'm also the one spoken of in prophecy, the matriarch reborn, the Queen of Queens, the moon goddess's chosen representative." Laughter. It came from Seraphina, sharp and mocking. "You, the matriarch? You're an Omega, a rejected, worthless—" Elara's power lashed out like a whip. It was pure command, no physical touch, just will made manifest. Seraphina's words cut off as she was forced to her knees by an invisible weight. Her amber eyes went wide with shock and terror as she found herself unable to rise. "I'm no Omega," Elara said quietly. "I never was. My power was bound at birth by my parents' fear. But when you convinced your new mate to reject and cast me out, you did something you didn't intend. You broke the binding." She raised her hand, and golden light swirled around her fingers. The crowd gasped. "You threw me away to die," Elara continued, her eyes finding Daemon. "The moon goddess's chosen mate for you, the one who would have made you the strongest alpha king in history. And instead, you chose ambition. You chose appearances. You chose wrong." Daemon's face had gone white. "Elara, I didn't know—" "You knew I was your fated mate," she interrupted. "You felt the bond, the same as I did. You just decided it wasn't worth choosing someone weak, someone Omega, someone beneath you." She took another step forward. Theron growled low in his chest, a warning to everyone in the room. "But I'm not beneath anyone," Elara said, "and it's time everyone here understood that." She shifted. The transformation was instant and fluid. One moment, a woman. The next, a massive golden wolf that towered over every other wolf in the room. Her fur blazed with inner light. Her eyes glowed molten gold, and her presence was so overwhelming that wolves throughout the room dropped to their knees in instinctive submission. Daemon staggered backward. His gray eyes locked on her transformed state. "Moon goddess," he whispered. Elara shifted back, and someone, Rhaina, grinning fiercely, handed her a cloak. "4 weeks ago you had everything," Elara said to Daemon. "A fated mate, a destiny blessed by the moon goddess herself, a future that would have made you legendary, and you threw it all away because you were too proud to see value in someone you thought was weak." She looked around the hall at the assembled pack members. Many were still on their knees. All of them watched with expressions of shock, fear, or dawning understanding. "Silver Crest Pack," Elara said, her voice carrying to every corner. "You cast me out. You stood by while your alpha rejected his fated mate and sent her to die. You failed the moon goddess's test." "Test?" Daemon's voice was hoarse. "Everything is a test," Elara said. "How you treat the lowest among you, how you honor fate over ambition, how you choose between right and easy. You all failed." Seraphina finally managed to stand, though she was shaking. "What do you want?" she spat. "Revenge? To steal back your mate? Well, you can't have him. I'm the chosen queen now. I don't want him, Ilara said, and the truth of it rang in her voice. The mate bond is broken. I'm free of that tie, and Daemon made his choice very clear. She turned back to the Alpha King, who still stood frozen by his throne. What I want, Ilara said, is what I'm owed: recognition, respect, and justice. We acknowledge you, Daemon said quickly. You're clearly powerful. Whatever you are, matriarch, whatever, we acknowledge it. You can stay. I'll make you a beta, give you status. Territory. I don't want to stay, Ilara interrupted. This place is poison. I want you to acknowledge your mistake publicly. I want you to tell your pack that you rejected your fated mate out of pride and ambition. And I want you to accept the consequences. What consequences? Seraphina demanded. Before Ilara could answer, the doors burst open. More Silvercrest wolves poured in, warriors from the barracks, responding to reports of an incursion. 20 more wolves. 30. Soon the hall was packed with Silvercrest's army, easily 100 wolves, surrounding the Shadow Guard's 50. The head warrior, a massive gray wolf named Cain, pushed to the front. Alpha, he said to Daemon, we're here. What are your orders? Seraphina's smile was vicious. Kill them. Kill all of them, especially her. No, Daemon's voice cracked like thunder. But there was uncertainty in it. His eyes kept darting between Ilara and his warriors, calculating odds. Cain shifted to human form. She calls herself matriarch, he said, spitting the word. But I see one glowing wolf and a bunch of old strays. Our army numbers 200. She has 50. The math is simple. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the Silvercrest wolves. Warriors who'd spent their lives believing strength came from numbers, from pack size, from hierarchy. They were about to learn differently. Ilara felt her wolf stir, eager. Let me show them, her wolf said. Let me show them what real power looks like. You're right, Ilara said to Cain. The math is simple, but you're solving the wrong equation. She nodded to Theron, who threw back his head and howled, a signal. The Shadow Guard shifted as one. 49 wolves transformed in perfect synchronization, and every single one was massive. Dire wolves of legend, each one larger than any alpha in Silvercrest. Theron's black form dwarfed even Cain's impressive size. Marcus's gray wolf had scars that told of centuries of battle. Rhaena's copper-red form seemed to glow with inner fire. The Silvercrest wolves fell back, their bravado evaporating in the face of 49 legends come to life. We are the Shadow Guard, Ilara said, her voice calm despite the tension. Sworn to the Moon Goddess 300 years ago. We've been searching for our matriarch since before your great-great-grandparents were born. And now that we've found her, she smiled without humor. Do you really think your numbers mean anything? Cain looked at Daemon, uncertainty written all over his face. Alpha, he said. Orders? Seraphina stepped forward, her beautiful face twisted with rage and jealousy. I don't care how big they are. I don't care about prophecies or moon goddess nonsense. She's a threat to my position, and I won't stand for— She shifted in mid-sentence, a fluid transformation into her amber wolf form. Large for a female. Fast. Deadly in normal circumstances. She launched herself at Ilara with fangs bared. Time seemed to slow. Ilara shifted between one heartbeat and the next. Her golden form materialized just as Seraphina's amber form reached her. One massive paw came up, almost lazy in its speed, and batted Seraphina aside like swatting a fly. The impact sent Seraphina crashing into the stone wall 20 feet away. She hit with a crunch that made people wince, then slid to the floor and lay still. Not dead. Ilara could hear her heartbeat, ragged but steady, just thoroughly defeated. Ilara shifted back to human form, not even breathing hard. "Anyone else?" she asked the assembled warriors. Silence. Cain swallowed hard, then did something that stunned everyone in the room. He fell to his knees. "Forgive me, matriarch," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't understand." Behind him, one by one, Silver Crest warriors began dropping to their knees. Not all of them. Some looked to Daemon for guidance, others were too proud or confused. But enough that the message was clear. Power recognized power. "Daemon!" Ilara's voice cut through the murmurs. "You have a choice to make, right now, in front of everyone." The Alpha King looked small suddenly, despite his impressive size. His gray eyes met hers, and she saw regret there. Real, genuine regret. But regret didn't fix anything. "I was wrong," he said finally. "I felt the mate bond. I knew what it meant. And I rejected you anyway because I was afraid of what people would think. Afraid of appearing weak. I chose my reputation over destiny." The confession rippled through the crowd. Ilara heard gasps, whispers. Pack members processing this information, understanding now what their alpha had done. "I can't undo it," Daemon continued. "The rejection is permanent. The bond is broken. But if I could," his voice cracked. "If I could go back, I would choose differently." "Would you?" Ilara asked quietly. "Or would you just hide it better this time?" Daemon flinched like she'd struck him. "I don't want your apology," Ilara said. "And I don't want you. But I do want something from you. From all of you." She turned to address the entire pack. "The old ways are broken," she declared. "Hierarchy based purely on birth rank. Omegas treated as disposable. Power valued over honor. Fated bonds rejected for political convenience. All of it ends now." "You can't just," one of the Beta commanders started. "I can," Ilara interrupted, and golden light flared around her. "I am the matriarch. The moon goddess is chosen. What I declare becomes law." She looked back at Daemon. "You will reform Silver Crest Pack. Omegas will be treated with dignity. Mate bonds, especially fated ones, will be held sacred. Power will be earned through honor and service, not just strength. And if you fail," her golden eyes hardened, "I will return. And next time, I won't be so merciful." Merciful? Seraphina had regained consciousness, though she remained slumped against the wall. Blood trickled from her mouth. "You call this mercy?" "You're alive," Ilara said simply. "That's mercy. You convinced Daemon to reject his fated mate. You ensured I was thrown out with nothing. You tried to kill me just now, and yet you still breathe. Yes, Seraphina, that's mercy." She turned back to Daemon. "And you? You'll step down as Alpha King." Gasps erupted through the hall. "What?" Daemon's face went pale. "You can't." "I can," Ilara repeated. "You proved yourself unworthy when you rejected your fated mate. Cain," she looked at the head warrior, who was still kneeling. "You seem to understand power when you see it. Can you lead with honor?" Cain's eye went wide. "You're making me alpha." "I'm giving you the chance to prove yourself worthy of the title," Ilara corrected. "Daemon will remain in the pack, but as a warrior only. Seraphina will be stripped of her titles and authority, and both of them will spend the rest of their lives knowing they had everything and threw it away." She paused, letting that sink in. "That," she said quietly, "is justice. Not revenge. Justice." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Cain, still on his knees, bowed his head until it touched the stone floor. "I accept, matriarch," he said, "and I swear, by the moon goddess and all that is sacred, Silver Crest will honor your laws." Around him, more wolves knelt. Not all of them. Change was slow, and some would resist, but enough that the tide had turned. Damon remained standing, his face a mask of shock and grief. He'd lost everything in a single afternoon: his mate bond, his throne, his power, his future. All because 4 weeks ago, he'd been too proud to accept an Omega as his fated mate. Elara felt something like pity stir in her chest, but she pushed it down. He'd made his choices. Now he lived with them. "I am Elara Moonshadow," she declared to the assembled pack, her voice ringing with power. "I am the Matriarch reborn. These territories, all wolf territories across the land, are under my protection now. And any who harm the innocent, who break sacred bonds, who value power over honor, will answer to me." She paused, golden light swirling around her. "This is my territory now. All of it. And this is the beginning of a new age." Thunder rumbled overhead, though the sky was clear. The moon goddess's approval. The Shadow Guard howled as one, 49 voices raised in perfect harmony. And in the great hall of Silver Crest Pack, 100 wolves bowed to their new queen. They found Elara's parents as the crowd dispersed. Michael and Sarah Moonshadow stood frozen near the entrance, their faces white with terror. They knew what was coming. "Mother." "Father," Elara said, approaching them with Theron at her side, still in wolf form, a massive protective presence. "Elara," her mother whispered, "please, you have to understand." "I do understand," Elara interrupted. "Grandmother Lissa told me everything. You bound my power when I was an infant because you were afraid. Afraid of attention, afraid of responsibility, afraid of your own daughter." Her father stepped forward. "We were trying to protect you. If other packs had known what you were, they would have come for me, yes," Elara said. "I know." The binding had one silver lining. It kept me hidden until I was old enough to survive. But that doesn't excuse what you did. She let them see the pain in her eyes. "You watched me suffer for 23 years, she said quietly. "Watched me be mocked and abused and treated like I was worthless. You could have broken the binding at any time, given me back my power, my dignity, my true self. But you didn't. We were afraid," her mother said, tears streaming down her face. "Afraid that if we broke it, we'd lose you to destiny, to battles and politics and dangers we couldn't protect you from. So instead, you let me lose myself," Elara said. "You let me think I was weak, broken, less than. Do you have any idea what that does to someone? To spend their entire life believing they're fundamentally flawed?" Both her parents were crying now. "I'm sorry," her father choked out. "I'm so sorry. We were wrong. We were selfish. He fell to his knees. "We don't deserve your forgiveness. But please, know that we do love you. We always loved you." Elara looked at them, these two people who'd given her life and then immediately crippled it out of their own fear. "I loved you too," she said. "I loved you enough to forgive your embarrassment at having an Omega daughter, to forgive your distance, to forgive the way you looked at me like I was a mistake. I loved you despite all of it." She took a breath. "But I can't forgive this. Not yet. Maybe someday. But not today." Her mother reached for her. "Elara, you'll remain in the pack," Elara said, stepping back from the offered touch. "Cain is alpha now. He'll decide your status. But you're not my parents anymore. Not until you prove you deserve that title. Not until you can look me in the eye and see me for what I really am. Not what you wished I was or feared I might be, but what I am." She turned to leave, then paused. "I am the matriarch," she said without looking back. "I am powerful and strong and exactly what the moon goddess intended, and you could have been part of that. You could have raised a queen. Instead, you tried to hide one. She walked away, the shadow guard falling into formation around her. Behind her, her parents' sobs echoed through the hall. They made camp in neutral territory that night, far enough from Silver Crest that their presence wouldn't be felt, but close enough to respond if Kane needed guidance in his new role. Ilara sat by the fire, watching flames dance against the darkness. Around her, the shadow guard moved through familiar routines, setting watches, preparing food, checking weapons. 50 warriors who'd become family. Theron approached from the perimeter, shifted to human form, and settled beside her. His scent of aged oak and winter snow wrapped around her like a familiar blanket. "You did well today," he said quietly. "Did I?" Ilara hugged her knees to her chest. "I destroyed a man's life, exiled my own parents, upended an entire pack's hierarchy. You delivered justice," Theron corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" She looked at him. "Because right now it feels like revenge, dressed up in noble intentions." Theron was quiet for a moment, his silver eyes reflecting firelight. Daemon Blackthorn rejected his fated mate to maintain his image, he finally said. Seraphina conspired to send you to your death. Your parents bound your power and forced you to live a lie for 23 years. None of that was an accident. None of that was a mistake. They chose cruelty. They chose selfishness. They chose pride. He shifted slightly closer. You chose justice. You let them all live. You gave them chances for redemption. You could have killed them all, and by pack law, you would have been within your rights. Instead, you gave them what they gave you, a second chance. They just don't like what that chance looks like. Ilara leaned against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his solid presence. I keep thinking about the prophecy, she said softly. About being cast out and reborn. About changing everything. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? Theron's arm came around her shoulders, gentle but firm. You won't fail, he said with absolute certainty, because you're not doing this for power or glory. You're doing it because you remember what it felt like to be powerless. And that, my matriarch, is exactly why you'll succeed. She turned her head to look at him. Really look at him. This warrior who'd searched for 300 years, who'd never given up hope, who looked at her not with worship or fear, but with respect and something warmer. Theron, she said softly, I need to tell you something. His silver eyes searched hers. What? When Daemon rejected the mate bond, it broke something in me, but it also freed me. The moon goddess gives fated mates, yes, but she also gives us choice, and I choose. She took a breath. I choose you, not because of destiny or bonds or prophecy, but because you see me, the real me. And you stayed. Theron's breath caught. Ilara, you don't have to. I want to, she interrupted. I want to choose. I want to choose you. For a long moment, Theron just looked at her. Then, slowly, he cupped her face in his scarred hands. I've waited 300 years, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I can wait as long as you need. But if you're sure, I'm sure, Ilara said. He kissed her then, gentle and reverent. Not the explosive chemistry of a fated bond, but something deeper, something chosen, something real. When they pulled apart, Ilara rested her forehead against his. My matriarch, he whispered. My commander, she whispered back. Around them, the Shadow Guard pretended not to notice, but Ilara heard Rhaena's soft laugh and Marcus's gruff approval. Her family, celebrating quietly. Good choice, her wolf said with satisfaction. He's worthy. Elara smiled against Theron's shoulder. 4 weeks ago, she'd been an Omega cast out to die. Tonight, she was a queen with an army at her back and a man she'd chosen by her side. Tomorrow, they would begin the real work, reforming packs across the territories, enforcing new laws, protecting the powerless. But tonight, for this one perfect moment, Elara let herself just be. Not the matriarch, not the prophesied one, not the Omega who'd been reborn. Just Elara. Finally, truly herself. The weeks that followed brought change like a wildfire across the territories. News of the matriarch spread fast, carried by scouts, whispered in pack meetings, debated by elders. Some packs welcomed the new order, others resisted. A few tried to challenge Elara's authority directly. Those challenges ended quickly. The Shadow Guard became legend in their own right, 50 dire wolves who served the matriarch with absolute loyalty. Pack after pack bent the knee when they saw what Elara and her warriors could do. Kain proved to be a good alpha for Silver Crest. He implemented Elara's laws carefully, balancing change with stability. The pack adapted. Some wolves, too set in their ways, left to join more traditional packs, but most stayed, and the territory prospered. Daemon remained in Silver Crest, demoted to a regular warrior. Elara heard reports that he threw himself into training, working harder than anyone, as if trying to atone through action. Seraphina left the pack entirely, humiliated by her defeat and demotion. Elara's parents stayed too, but the distance between them and their daughter remained vast. Perhaps someday it would heal. But not yet. Through it all, the Shadow Guard stood firm, and Theron remained at Elara's side, not just as her commander, but as her chosen mate. Their bond wasn't fated, but it was strong, built on respect, understanding, and a love that had nothing to do with destiny and everything to do with choice. The Moon Goddess approved. Elara felt it in the way the silver light touched them when they were together, in the way their combined power felt natural, complementary. And so Elara Moonshadow, once an Omega, now the matriarch, stood at the beginning of a new era. She'd been rejected and cast out. She'd nearly died in a blizzard. She'd discovered her true power. She'd claimed her destiny. And now, with the Shadow Guard at her back and Theron at her side, she would reshape the wolf world into something better. Something just. The prophecy had been fulfilled. But the real story, that was only beginning. Because power isn't about where you start. It's about who you choose to become. And Elara had chosen to become someone who protected the powerless, who honored bonds over politics, who led with wisdom earned through suffering. She'd been thrown away, and she'd become a queen. That was the lesson. That was the truth. That was her legacy. And across the territories, in every pack that heard her story, young Omegas dared to hope. Because if Elara Moonshadow could rise from rejection to royalty, then maybe, just maybe, they could too. That hope was Elara's greatest gift to her people, and it would change everything. Thank you for listening to Elara's journey from broken rejection to unshakable power. Her story reminds us that sometimes what seems like an ending is really just the beginning, and that true strength often comes from surviving what was meant to destroy us. What do you think about Daemon's fate? Was Elara's justice too harsh, or exactly what he deserved? Should she eventually forgive her parents, or do some betrayals run too deep? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of transformation and destiny, don't forget to like this video and share it with anyone who loves werewolf romance with powerful heroines. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in our collection of supernatural tales. Coming up next, we'll explore what happens when a blood moon rises over the territories and an ancient evil begins to stir. one that will require the matriarch's full power to face. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter.